welcome to the 8th session, no, 9th session today. All right. So in the previous session, we got started with Microsoft Excel, and we were initially acquainted with the structure of an Excel file. What are the things that you see on the window? We started working with formulas a little bit. So today and in the next session, that's next Monday, we plan to continue working with formulas and functions, right? Now, the terms formulas and functions are by and large used interchangeably. And even though there are some differences between the two, we are going to continue using them interchangeably. I prefer using the term formulas. Functions is also appropriate for a lot of situations. So today and the next Monday, we are going to, both of these days, we are going to keep working with formulas and functions. However, the distinction is going to be that today we are going to focus largely on mathematical operations. All right, so that's going to be the big focus for today. Whereas next Monday, we are going to focus largely on non-mathematical. And the reason why I'm saying largely is because there will be a couple of logical and non-mathematical things which will creep in even while we are working with other things. So, which is the reason why I'm saying that there'll be largely a focus on these kind of things. All right, so any questions about Excel? Okay, so just a quick note, if I see some of you on the chat, if you're sending a different name and if you're showing up as a different name, request you to just rename yourself on Zoom instead. Yeah, so any questions on Excel about what we've covered? Flash fill. Okay, so flash fill, I was going to cover this a little later, but I can do this right here. So okay, so there will be situations where you have a pattern to certain things, right? There will be situations where you have patterns to certain things, and Excel can sense that pattern. So there are multiple ways of doing this. One is by you telling explicitly that this is what I need to do, which is what I'm going to cover today and also the next session. But then if Excel sees a pattern, for example, if you have got a first name, right, and a last name, okay? So you have, say, Mr. and the last name is Anand. You have first name is Sachin, the last name is Victor. First name is Virat, and last name is Kohli. You have Vidit, Sharma. Then you have A, C. Yeah, something like this. All right. So now suppose we want to fill full name. Okay, there are functions to do this, which we will cover in the next Monday session when we are doing non-mathematical. There are functions that can help you fill in the full name. But one other normally intuitive way of doing it would be just simply typing. Yeah, so you can simply type these two things together and you can get the full name. So you can also type the second one. Yeah. So now when these two things are done, okay, then Excel can understand a pattern, hopefully. For most of the cases, Excel will be able to understand a pattern. It does not make sense of what is written, but it just knows that this and this are being combined into this. Okay. So when I have situations such as this, I can simply use a flash fill shortcut. That's all. So I can directly go from here, data, there is a flash fill button. I can use that, or I can use a shortcut, which is Control E. Okay. So what flash fill here does is it just picks up the first column and the second column, puts them together and fits them here. That's it. That's as simple as that, right? Now, not only is it as simple as that, it also adds a space. So what it is doing is it's taking the first name and it's putting a space and it's putting the last name in this column. It does not make sense of what those names are, right? But it is going it is going to sort of combine those two things together. Now what is important here to know is that this is not a formula. This is not using a function. So which means if I now update this, right? If I now update this, you see, this does not get updated automatically. The reason it does not get updated automatically is because this is not a function. All right. So you will have to remember so that flash fill has got these kind of limitations when we are trying to use. If you had instead used a function over here, then even if you update these names, you update all of these names, right? And the final full name would have been updated if we had used a function. However, since we've not used a function, we've used flash fill, then if you want them to be updated, what you will have to do is you'll have to come here and then again do a fresh fill, right? So you'll have to come to that cell. So which cell you come to? You come to immediately the next following empty cell. If you start from here, you may not get the result. You have to start from here so it knows that it's continuing the same pattern, and from there you will get the result. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies. Someone says a no. I don't understand. Does that mean that he didn't clarify this for you? Flash fill is under data. Data. So you have this. Sorry, you have home, insert, page layout, etc. Under data, you will have flash fill. If I remember right, this was introduced around 2013. So if you got Excel 2007, you will not see flash fill. But if you got something 2013 onwards, version 2013, the launch 2013 onwards, you should be able to find flash fill under data. Okay. Even if you don't find it, just press Control E. Just press Control E, and it should flash fill for you. I personally, I mean, these look interesting, but I personally prefer not to use this simply because it does not update, because it's not a formula, it's not a function, right? Because it's not a function, it does not auto update things. So I prefer to keep things in functions as far as possible, so that you make any updates to your file, it just becomes easier to handle. All right, but of course, there's no right or wrong way. If you've already got a set which is perfect, which is formatted correctly and everything, flash fill might save you a couple of seconds. It would have taken you maybe about 20 seconds to type the function, 30 seconds to type the function. So flash fill will get that job done in about 3 seconds. So that's significant time saved if you are sure about the data. There's a question from Sunita about print. So like I had mentioned, print related things we'll come to later, just like how we have done for Word. So I prefer to first understand how the software works, right? And then get to, so you basically first learn how to create, right? Because a lot of things might even be resolved while creating itself. So let's first figure out how to create, and then we'll go on to do ancillary things such as printing. We'll talk about printing. So Excel printing is a little difficult. So there's a question from Sahil. Just as you told about flash fill, I do it, but the name that come is full Sahil, not Sahil Agarwal. So it'll just simply combine what you've done, right? So there's no way to really say what you are doing, right? But suppose you have suppose you have something like something else, right? If you set it up differently, then it'll give you an error. So it's probably not set up this way. Hard to say without taking a look. Maybe if you can send a screenshot to me on the chat. All right, so let's move on with our session today. So to start with, there are two different terms, like I was saying. There is something called a formula, and then there is something called a function. So we'll have to first understand what do we mean by a formula and what do we mean by a function. So very simply speaking, a formula is specifying a set of operations between the cells. All right. A formula specifies set of operations between the cells. So for example, if I'm typing rather equal to B1 plus B2 equal to B1 plus B2, that is a formula, because what I'm doing is I am specifying a set of operations between two cells, right? What are the two cells here? B1 and B2 are two cells, and what I'm specifying, the mathematical operator between them that I'm specifying, is the plus or addition operator. Instead, I could achieve the same thing differently. How? I could do equal to sum, open the brackets, B1 comma B2, right? Or B1 colon B2. Yeah, I'm going to get the same answer. So what have I done? I have not used any mathematical operator. So how do you get Excel to perform an addition without entering the plus sign? And how is it that I'm able to do that? Because the function that is sum already has a mathematical formula that is plus embedded in it. All right. So a formula is something where you can specify certain operators and what kind of operators we'll see. And a function is something which is built in. So what a function will do is, the moment you add or the moment you enter a function, it's going to call a particular built-in formula set, right? For example, if it's average, you can do average with a formula also. How would you do average with a formula? You are going to do A plus B plus C plus D, all of the numbers, divided by, you are going to count all of those numbers and say divided by that particular number, right? However, you can also use a built-in function called average. The moment you use a built-in function called average, Excel is still going to break it down into saying sum and count, but you did not have to specify the summation, right? It came in automatically. Sorry. So it has called a built-in formula set, and it has given you the answer. So when we say a function, right, we are typically talking about a a command or a function that we type in, like equal to sum, equal to average, equal to count, and so on. We'll see more. There are many more. And when we say a formula can simply have direct references, let's say equal to b1 plus b2, or it can have a mixture of the two things. It can use a function as well as references. So for example, I can say equal to sum of b1 comma b2 multiplied by b3, or I can even use a set of functions and a constant multiplied by 2. We've seen all of these different possibilities the other day. So any combination of these things can be made, can be put together, and they all are formulas, right? So this is the reason why we will tend to go on using the term formula a lot more, but very strictly speaking, that really is the difference between the two things. Now, we'll start today by taking a deeper look at what goes into a formula, right? So what is the syntax? What's the structure of a formula? So a formula can have a couple of different things. One, it may or it may not have a function. All right, it may or it may not have a function, right? Even if it has a function, irrespective of whether it has a function or does not have a function, it will have some references, right? It will have some references, or it will have some constants. References means it points to a particular cell which has the value, or a constant means that you have directly entered the value itself. So a formula may or may not have function, but it will have references, or it will have constants, and it will have some operators, right? So we'll take a look at all of these things. These references that are there can be of three types: relative references, absolute references, and mixed references. So we'll again cover all three of these things today. Operators can be of four different types. We can have mathematical operators or arithmetic operators like plus, minus, multiply, divide, etc. We can have reference operators like, comma, which is a union operator, etc. You can have logical operators, like you are checking if two values are equal, you are checking if something is greater, if something is lesser than something, right? These are logical kind of operators, or you call them comparison operators. And then finally, there's a single operator within a concatenation operator. Concatenation means joining of two things. Joining of two things. So concatenation, we'll cover on Monday. Logical we'll cover on Monday, but we are going to cover mostly arithmetic today. But while we are doing arithmetic, we will also end up covering reference operators today. All right. So, but comparison, some of the logical we'll do today, but otherwise logical we will keep more for Monday. In terms of the order of precedence of calculations, this is the order of precedence from left to right. Brackets are performed first, parenthesis, and then followed by reference, followed by negative number, right? So a negation, this does not mean a minus operator, okay? A minus operator is different from considering a negative operator. So for example, you have -1 multiplied by something. So that -1 is going to be taken first. It's not going to be 1 multiplied by something and minus later. So in certain kinds of equations, it might change. Then percentage, then the caret is for exponentiation, raised to the power of something, then multiplication and division, followed by addition and subtraction, then AND operator, which is the concatenation operator, and the last thing to be evaluated is the logical or the comparison operators, right? So if you think about it, there's a reason why this is so, okay? Or more particularly, all of the others are just following BODMAS. They're just following your, bracket of division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, that same thing, yeah? The reason why comparison or logical operators are at the end is because logical operators or comparison operators will compare two values. Yeah. So when you are comparing, you want to compare the final two values. Imagine you have two different equations, like you have left hand side equal to right hand side, right? So you just don't start taking the two variables just around the equal to sign and say that no, both are not equal. You don't do that, right? So what you do is you first solve the entire left hand side, you first solve the entire right hand side, and then finally the final value of the left hand side equal to the final value of the right hand side, isn't it? That's how we do mathematical equation solving. The same thing is done in Excel also, which is the reason why logical or comparison operators, they are the same thing, they are evaluated the last. Okay, and while you do all of these, you could come across a multitude of errors. You come across a multitude of errors, a lot of different errors, right? So the first error that you might see is a lot of hashes, a lot of hashes. So I don't remember who, but someone was mentioning, someone was asking about this the other day. You see a lot of hashes. The hashes mean that the number is too big to be shown. Okay, the number is too big to be shown. So Excel chooses not to hide a part of the number, because if it chooses to hide a particular part of the number, for example, if your number is 1,23,900,000, right, or 1,23,90,000, yeah, and imagine the cell is not wide enough to show this entire thing, right? If the cell is not wide enough, then you might misunderstand or you might misread that value as 1,23,900, or for that matter, even as 12,390, right? So it does not show, it does not randomly cut off digits. How does it tell you that, look, I'm unable to show all of the digits? It does that by converting all of them into hashes. Okay. Now, hashes are all right, because if you are using a formula, then the number will still be the correct number that is getting computed. So only thing the hashes cause trouble with is the display. So it does not really cause any trouble with the actual functioning. So therefore it's okay. Whereas the others, they are actual errors. They are all actual errors. So you have this, name error, etc. These are all actual errors. Name error, and again, I'll just quickly run through the errors here, but we will look at all of these as we see whenever we come across these errors, and I'll show you these on Excel sheet actually. But just so you know, a name error comes typically when you have misspelled a particular command name, right? Say, for example, instead of writing average, AVERAGE, right? You maybe make a mistake and say ABERAG. Okay, so then you will get a name error. A value error comes when you have a wrong value. So for example, if you have a number which is entered as a text, it looks like a number, but it's actually a text to Excel. And then you ask it to calculate the sum of that number with something else. Excel obviously cannot, because to the software, that number is actually a text. So then you will get this hash value error. Hash ref error means invalid references. So typically, if you are having a calculation and then relating to that, you have another calculation, and suppose you deleted the first one, then the second calculation, the references become orphan references. Okay, it is not able to point to any cell. Again, I will explain all of these as we do Excel, so please don't worry about it. Num error comes when there is some invalid number value, right? So there's a numeric value, but that numeric value is not correct, or that numeric value is wrong. So that is wrong, not in the sense of a logical correctness, but in terms of technical correctness, there is something wrong with that numeric value. So then you will get a num error. NA error means it's not available. That's all. It's just not available. So when we do some of these index and find and these kind of things, when we are trying to match, if there is no match available, then it will say not available. So that is shown as NA. Null error will come rarely. Only in one condition you get this null error, that is when there is no intersection. So I'll show you how to make intersections, and if there is no intersection, then you will see a null error. So typically in terms of day-to-day working, you wouldn't really see null error a lot. Div by zero error, you'll see a lot. Again, just as the name specifies, it's dividing by zero. So anytime you are trying to divide something by zero, then that value is indeterminate. Anytime you are dividing something by zero, then that is indeterminate, and then you will see this div by zero error. Right? Okay.